Unlike fine wine, credit cards often just don't age that well. It's typically the oldest ones that have the fewest perks and benefits. If you have a credit card that's not working for you, should you close it? And if you do close a credit card, what are the potential impacts on your credit scores? Closing a credit card can be a good move, but not always. Let me tell you the reasons why you might or might not close a credit card, what potential impacts it can have on your credit scores, and if you do decide to close a card, how to actually go about doing it. Let's start by talking about the reasons why you might close a credit card. There are all sorts of reasons why you might close a credit card. If you have a high credit limit and you have that temptation to spend money beyond your means just because that credit limit technically allows it, but you do know in the back of your head that you have to pay off that money later, then having a credit card might not be for you. NerdWallet has outlined on its sites many tactics for ways that you can curb spending and still use a credit card responsibly, but especially in the short term, it can make sense to just simply not have credit cards at all. Another reason why you might close a credit card is because it has an annual fee. Often high annual fee credit cards have high amounts of perks and benefits to match, but if you're not using those benefits, then it can make sense to close those cards. A lot of travel credit cards have amazing benefits, but if you're not traveling this year, then there might not be any reason to actually pay for those benefits, in which case closing the card can certainly make sense. Then the final reason why I think a lot of people cancel credit cards is simply because it is so much to manage. You might have no problem managing 2 or 3 credit cards, but as soon as you start applying for more, that becomes more and more credit cards to manage. Every new credit card that you have is another due date to remember, another bill to pay. If you're still getting snail mail sent to your house, that's more paper statements to receive. Now, some people have no problem managing multiple credit cards. They might use auto pay, so they don't really even know what the due date is on their credit card, but you still need to make sure you have sufficient funds in your account for those auto pays to be made. You might turn on the automatic statements that are sent electronically, but that's again not for everybody. Some people want to see those paper statements coming to their house. There are so many reasons why managing multiple credit cards can be complicated, in which case you might just close those credit cards that you're not actually using. So I gave you 3 reasons why you might close a credit card, but let me give you 2 reasons why you might not want to close a credit card. Both of these reasons have something to do with your credit scores. Closing credit cards can sometimes have a negative impact on your credit scores, and there are 2 reasons in particular why. The first is your credit utilization ratio. This is basically how much available credit you have relative to the amount of spending or outstanding credit card debt that you have. Having a lower credit utilization ratio is always better. NerdWallet recommends that you keep your credit utilization ratio always below 30%, but even lower than that can be better. So every credit card that you have has a credit limit. And so let's say that you have 10 credit cards and each has a $1,000 credit limit. So that would be a $10,000 overall available credit limit, but you close one of those cards, that brings it down to $9,000. Assuming that you still had the same amount of outstanding credit card debt, closing one of those cards would actually increase your credit utilization ratio, which can have a negative impact on your credit scores. The other reason why you might not want to close a credit card is because of your average age of credit. Having a long credit history can be good for your credit scores. Having a shorter credit history is something that isn't as good for your credit scores. So it's always good to have longer lengths of credit history, especially if you have a positive account history. You've been paying off that credit card in full on time. If you're closing one of those really old credit cards, that card that doesn't have any points that you got in college, that can actually reduce the average age of your credit, which can have a negative impact on your credit scores. So if it's just a really old card that you rarely use, you might actually want to reconsider closing it if you want to have that higher credit score. So I gave you 2 reasons why you might not want to close a credit card. So now I'm gonna give you some alternatives so you might be able to keep that credit card open, but not have the negative things that come with possibly holding a credit card. So we talked about the reason why you might want to close a credit card is because of the annual fee. If you have a high annual fee credit card and you're not actually using the perks that go with it, then you might want to transfer the card to a card that has a $0 annual fee. Many banks actually make this easy by offering products in the same family of credit cards that you can transfer to. So a bank might offer a credit card that has a $95 annual fee. That's the one you hold right now. But often the bank will let you transfer that same account history to a sibling credit card that has $0 annual fee. You'll typically lose a lot of the perks and benefits, but you can often maintain that same credit history, so you'll keep the credit limit and your average age of credit will remain the same. That's a great alternative. Another common reason why people want to close credit cards is because the interest rate is too high. This applies to people who carry a balance on that credit card. You certainly might want to transfer your high interest credit card debt to another credit card that has a low or no interest rate. In fact, I've got a whole other video on balance transfer credit cards, which you'll certainly want to watch. That said, you might be able to keep that credit card open and actually call your bank and ask for an interest rate reduction. It's actually common that banks will offer this to you, especially if you've been a longtime client. Speaking of high interest credit card debt, another big reason why people want to cancel credit cards is to curb overspending. I fully realize that credit cards can make it really tempting to spend beyond your means. And I think it's good for people who say, you know what, I want to close my credit card to not be tempted. But the reality is, unfortunately, you need a credit card to go through many aspects of life. Often even landlords will reference your credit card usage as a reason to decide whether or not to rent out an apartment to you. Even employers often will check your credit. And so having a credit card can be a really, really good way to build credit. So if you don't have one, sometimes you're actually, hurting those other aspects of your life. So how do you curb overspending and still maintain a credit card? Well, there are a few tricks. If you're out shopping and it's tempting to just swipe the credit card, I recommend that you just bring cash or a debit card with you. Leave the credit card away in the drawer. In fact, always leave the credit card away in the drawer if you have trouble not spending beyond your means. Only use it for an emergency. Another big tip that I personally use myself is when it comes to online shopping, I do not save my credit card information in my browser. If it's already there, I find it really easy to check out. Versus if I have to get off the couch, go to my purse, get my credit card, type in that number, I often find that I reconsider, do I really need to make that purchase, or is the effort to actually get my credit card not really worth it? That is another strategy you might take to maintain that credit card without actually spending beyond your means. All right, so you've made it this far, you are committed, you want to cancel your credit card. Let me tell you how to do that. It's actually really simple. You simply call your bank. Usually the phone number is listed on the back of your credit card right there. When you call your bank, you can have a conversation with them. It might not just be, I want to cancel your card. You can ask for things. So if you're canceling your card because you don't want to pay the annual fee, something that you can do is ask for a retention offer. Explain to them you're not using the card as much as you thought, you kind of like the card, but you don't want to pay the annual fee. A bank, especially if you've been a loyal customer, might be inclined to offer you what's called a retention offer. Terms vary, but typically it'll be something like, if you spend $3,000 on your card in the next 3 months, we'll give you a whole bunch of points and miles, or we might waive the annual fee this year. It's not a guarantee that banks will actually give you this, but it's certainly worth a shot. It's worth asking, and I've had success getting extra points and miles out of asking for retention offers. If you're trying to cancel the credit card because it has a high interest rate, again, you can explain that to your bank and they might be willing to lower your interest rate just to keep you as a customer. All right, so at this point, you are truly committed, you're ready to cancel the card. What do you do? Well, there are a few things that you need to do first. I recommend that any recurring payments you have coming from that card, you transfer them to another credit card. Let's say that you have your gym membership that just auto bills to that credit card every month. Make sure you change that billing to another form of payment. You don't want to show up at the gym this month and they've canceled your account because you didn't pay. Another thing, speaking of paying, is that you'll typically have to pay off your credit card first before you can cancel it. So if you have high balance on your credit card and you think you can just cancel the card and that balance will go away, that's not the case. You'll typically have to pay it off first. Have a plan. Again, if that means making a balance transfer, go ahead and watch my other YouTube video on balance transfer cards. And the third thing that I want you to do before cancel a credit card is to redeem your rewards. Typically, when you vanish as a customer from the bank, your credit card rewards will vanish too. So if you've got a cashback card, this is really simple. Just cash out those cards and get your check, your direct deposit, however your bank offers it to you, get that first. If you have a travel credit card that offers points and miles, you're in a bit of a tricky situation. If you can book a trip right now, great, but you might not have to do that. Sometimes you can exchange those points and miles for cash. Often the redemption rate isn't so good as if you had redeemed them for travel, but you don't want to book a trip that you weren't really going to take anyway. It might just be better to get the cash even at a lower rate. Another thing that you can often do with travel credit cards is you can transfer your points to other hotel and airline loyalty programs. So if that travel credit card has partnerships with a few hotels, say Marriott and Hyatt, then you can choose to send those points away to Marriott or Hyatt, and they will remain in your Marriott or Hyatt hotel loyalty program account. So that way, when you are ready to book a hotel, you'll have those points waiting for you, not in your bank's point form, but in the points form of one of those hotel loyalty programs. So the bottom line on credit cards. Closing credit cards can have a temporary negative impact on your credit scores. However, there are perfectly valid reasons why you might do it, whether it's saving money on an annual fee, it's getting rid of that high interest rate that you have and moving your debt to a lower or no interest rate credit card. It can simply be just to remove that chaos of having to manage a billion different credit cards. Whatever your reason, there could be good ones to cancel a credit card. Just make sure you follow these steps to ensure the process is smooth. I'm Sally French, a travel and credit cards writer for NerdWallet. My oldest credit card is one I acquired back in college, and I keep it open to keep my credit length long. I charge my monthly Spotify purchases to it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe.